experiences. This wealth of experience has given him a unique perspective into the mechanics of learning, how people get the most out of their learning, and how the Toastmasters program capitalizes on the facets necessary for real learning to take place. Todd is an affiliate member of the Canadian Association of Speakers, which he has been for 10 years. His home club is Dollard. He's also a member of DJAB in Wisconsin. And one of his keys to a successful day is to learn something new, say something interesting, and teach something. I believe tonight he will achieve those. His title for his keynote is going to be Facets of a Successful Toastmaster Experience. Our keynote speaker, Todd Gatien, with his speech, Facets of a Successful Toastmasters Experience. Take it away, Todd.
Thank you very much, David, for that warm introduction. It couldn't have been any better if I hadn't written it myself. So it is indeed a pleasure to be here with you this evening to present the Facets of a Successful Toastmaster Experience. And to get us started, I will play a little game before we screen share. I will let you know there is a handout. It will be available in the chat at the end of the presentation. There is a lot of information, and I know many people here are, either kinesthetic, audio, or visual, or they like to read. So that will be available. But please have an open mind. This was a project that was created before Pathways was completely the new normal, as we want to call it. And with that, I will stop sawing the wood and get on with the presentation. How many people have seen a little blue box like this at some point in their life? I see a couple of hands. That's great. What's more important is not the blue box that came from Tiffany, but what's inside the box. How many people in the room have received a ring at some point? Again, similar people. Perfect. What I want to talk about is the diamond that is in the ring. When we talk about a diamond, we talk about the 4 C's: the color, the clarity, the carat, and especially the cut. Because the cut of the diamond is what creates the facets that allow the light to be captured within inside the diamond and to shine so brilliantly. And this presentation is, as I mentioned, the facets of a successful Toastmasters experience. Give me a moment as I just load the presentation for you. Can I just get a check by a thumbs up from somebody that you actually do see the screen? Thank you very much. So we are all eager to learn and achieve, but what is it that is a successful learning experience? Many people say that it is they have learned something or that they have a new ability to do something. These are both correct answers, but unfortunately, we will see as we go along in the presentation that that is not always true. The belief is that if you inject training, knowledge, and competency, people should retain it. This is not always correct because in adult learning, there are different modalities and there's different ways that we can explain and show and or do things. So depending on how many of these you touch upon depends on how much people will retain and for how long they will retain it. Passive learning is probably the worst way to learn. And this is unfortunately the way most people teach. So unfortunately, a lot of people will forget the majority of this presentation probably within the next 24 hours. That's why there was a handout that is created so that you can have spaced repetition. You can go back and review, and by reviewing it, you can then have a better way of implementing it if you so choose to. And I do know that in the next 20 minutes as we go through this presentation, there will be a lot of things that you will have questions about, and I can't go into great depth or detail on it in a 20-minute presentation. So please do download the handout from the chat line and read it at your leisure. So back in 2006, there was a Harvard Business Review that was published, and it was called The Great Training Robbery. Basically, they said that $356 billion was spent to provide training in organizations to improve change and improve performance. And unfortunately, most of that goes in one ear and out the other ear. So, it's great that we have the training, but what are we doing with the training? So Toastmasters has developed over the last number of years a way to engage, excite, and motivate their members to have a better learning experience. And now in the last 5 years, they've introduced the new Pathways program, which is more tailored to the individual learning some 300 different soft skills that they can apply to real world life situations. And you are mostly probably all aware that there is 11 present paths with 5 different levels, and you will see a little bit more of that in this presentation. So the problem is, how do we turn an old program that's been around for almost 100 years and looks like a jalopy here that was probably a Model T car back in the day, into something that's more high performance, flashier, more cool, more in tune with the millennials? And how do we get to that state? And that's when they were looking at creating pathways. They tried to figure out, how can we become more modern? How can we be more relevant? And how can we be more accessible? So Pathways, as we are aware, is a program that is majorly on an online platform, but there are a couple of exceptions where you can still get them in the hard copy of paper. So there's 3 things that are important to create accelerated learning. One of them is to work within a known standard. This gives us a clear focus for learning and clarifies the expected results. You need to have specific mini goals so that you get incremental wins, like little yada boys or yada girls. Set clear and achievable with consistent, frequent feedback. And that's why Toastmasters has got one of the better learning frameworks, is because it applies and brings into cohesive combination all of the different parts. Like many other different programs that you can do might have one piece or a different piece, but in the Toastmasters program, you find a combination of all of the pieces that come together to provide the ultimate learning, accelerated learning system. This is the learning pyramid. It was developed back in the 1960s by the National Training Laboratories in Bethel, Maine. And some of these numbers can be misquoted, or they might be off by a couple of degrees according to whose research you're looking at. But overall, it goes like this. If you read something, you'll retain probably about 10% of the knowledge over a certain period of time. If you watch an audio visual program, you'll retain approximately 20% of the material, again, over a specific period of time. Demonstration, where you actually see an interaction in person, would be up around the 30%. Discussion is at 50%. That's where you've actually had an interaction, a conversation. Practice doing, that's where you get the opportunity to try it before you buy it. And at 90%, this is where mastery and competency comes from, is in teaching it to other. As we teach, we also learn. So it's important that if you really want to be a master of a certain skill or a certain technique or a certain program, take what you learn and then go teach somebody else, and you will integrate this into you more efficiently and effectively. So there was a book written about, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years ago, called The Influencer. And the authors of this book also wrote a couple of different ones. But what I liked about this book is that this format that you're going to see in a couple of seconds is very similar to the format of Pathways, and you'll see the overlay in about a slide or two. So if you look down the left side, the personal, social, and structural, and then you see there's motivation and ability on the top, this is kind of like the Johari window or some of these other different quadrant kind of programs in showing you if you do something, you get a result. If you do something, you get a result. So in this one, the personal is first is our personal motivation to tackle the learning challenge. Second is our ability. We are keen to succeed, but we don't know how. So we want to acquire the knowledge and practice those skills. Next, social is third, we kind of use peer motivation. When we find a group to work on common goals, this provides a blend of uplifting moral support and peer pressure. Fourth is our peer ability, being in a group with members who are working on similar goals. Structural is the motivation that offers the appropriate rewards and holds people accountable. 6 is the environment of physical environment and tools and systems that keeps everyone on track. Again, as I mentioned, quite heavy. There is a whole page and a half for you to read in the handout. So you're probably asking, what are the facets that Todd's talking about in this whole entire presentation? So experts tell us that the keys to learning success is the context in which we learn. So the 6 sources of influence, which is the diagram that you just saw, and you will see again on the next slide, shows how the personal, the social, and the structural parts work. The 5 levels of growth, I'll explain that momentarily as well. 5 parts of goal setting, and I imagine many of you already have done some goal setting over the years since you've been in Toastmasters, and I will quickly visit that as well. And the other part is behaviors and traits that allow you to continually learn. Look at the Toastmaster Pathway program. Our success comes from using this powerful learning framework based on those facets. So here in the structural part at the bottom, this is Toastmasters International. And what they do is they've provided the guidelines and the structure of the organization to help facilitate this. Then Pathways with the criteria and the explanations, the videos, the stuff to read, that's all part of this part here and how you get your awards. This is inside the club where the social ability in the club is, we're all there to support each other. This is the part where the evaluations and our members actually help to raise us up or bring us down, depending on how the evaluations go, but usually as a critique and feedback to provide ways in which you can develop better as a speaker. On the personal level, this is what we were talking about with the goal setting using the acronym called SMART, which we will see a slide shortly about that. We also developed in our club what we called a PEP plan, which is your Pathways Educational Plan. And the motivation for you to actually stay in the program, work the program, and get the incremental wins is building self-confidence and self-esteem. Levels of growth. Many disciplines now use the concept of the maturity model. The idea, it just makes sense. We start off as beginners and then improve incrementally by adding more intense and complex challenges at each level to build up our skills and experience. None of us should feel shy about this process. We all have to start somewhere. The wonderful thing about this growth is that we can celebrate our successes at each level and yet know that we can reach out for more if we want. The example I want to use with this is today, or over the last number of days, many of us are in competitions. The competitions at a division level or district level would be the equivalent of the skilled runner. The expert competitor would be, if you're in the international, you're in the top 100 to the top 10 to the winner. And, as a new member, you're obviously just getting in and you probably haven't passed your 6 speeches or your 2 levels. So you're probably not in the international, but, you might have acquired experiences and skills outside of Toastmasters that make you equally as effective as a evaluator or as a table topic speaker or a tall tale speaker. And, learning to run, that's like playing in your club. And, maybe you want to get into a club contest or an area contest, and that would be the competitive runner as well. So as I was alluding to earlier, there are 5 different levels in each path inside Pathways. Number 1 is mastering the fundamentals. I often told people this was like going to elementary school. You got what you needed to get along. Learning your style. This is like you're in high school, you're stretching your wings a little bit. 3, you're increasing your knowledge. This is maybe like in Canada, we have what's called CEGEP. And CEGEP is kind of a step between high school and university or college. So that would be that one. Building your skills. This is like doing your bachelor's, and maybe you want to do a master's demonstrating expertise. You do 2 paths and you get your DTM, which is kind of like doing a PhD. So with the SMART goals, as we can see here, they are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. As I said, probably you've seen different workshops on this, or if we want to come back and do a workshop just on it and how to do it correctly, that could be arranged as well. The leadership part of this project or workshop comes from the fact that inside the club, the management of the club and or the area creates the opportunity to have the ability to work in teams, to listen, to facilitate, to encourage, to motivate, all of those great catchy words. But actually in our organization, we actually talk the talk and walk the walk. I'm not going to say anybody's going to become the CEO of Amazon or, not going to be the next John Maxwell, but, many people, if we can speak and we can run a meeting, we can effectively change the world. So the Toastmasters experiential learning framework is like curriculum plus outline, which is the rules and the regulations and the criteria for each speech, the examples. You learn it at home, you come to the club and you perform it on Zoom or in a real world. The speeches and things are workshops. They're places where you can grow and try your own different techniques and talents. And it's the opportunity to take a problem, a me problem, and turn it into a we problem, and to use the collective groupthink to find a better answer. Teaching so often does not result in learning because sometimes the student is not ready or the teacher is not capable to deliver. Sometimes there's a mismatch, and when there's a mismatch, that's often when we do not have a cohesive matchings of the minds. if we look at the diamond in the picture, I won't pull out the diamond again. The diamond in the middle is you shining brightly after you have developed your skills and techniques. The little diamonds on the sides are those who you've helped along the way. I often like this quote, "If it is to be, it is up to me," by William H. Johnson. And this is taking the Toastmasters promise to heart and all those like 9 points that you like promise and pledge to when you become a member. And some people have never even heard it or seen it, but it would be a nice, interesting idea to go revisit that. It says we are each responsible for our own learning and to encourage others to become the best versions of themselves as well. I hope that this has been interesting and informative, and I'm not sure if there is a question and answer period because time is probably at its point.
Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much, Todd.
Round of applause.
Woohoo!
Okay, the only remaining